Today we're going to prepare Crimson Poppy for a class, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet. So Crimson Poppy is a Stella Maris mixer, which was also like the pattern Macaw. If you have Quiltster and you've colored your Crimson Poppy in Quiltster, then you need to print it out with the block option on the Quiltster print page. If you haven't got Quiltster to color your quilt, you can look at your pattern, and on the very back of the pattern, on page 27, you'll see a black and white line drawing, and you can color out your quilt here, and it'll tell you your block numbers, your color numbers on the fabric. So I've printed out my Quiltster, and I'm going to show you what that looks like close up. So here's what the Quiltster printout looks like close up. So I have only 5 colors in this quilt. I have the black, the cream, the gray, the red, and the maroon. And you can see that each one of them is listed several times. So just taking a look at the black, it explains what actual fabric it is that I colored it with, the Tonga Ebony from Timeless Treasures. And then you can see that it's divided into block numbers, K2, F2A, J3, L4, F4A, and so on down the row. And then if you look further into the other column, you can see that each one has a size strip. This needs 2 6.5-inch strips. The F2A needs 2 2 3/4-inch strips. The F10 needs 2 18-inch strips. And it'll tell you all the way down the list, and when you get to the bottom of that section, it says it's a total of 3 5/8 yards, and that it's 128 inches. So sometimes the inches vary from the yards. If they take the yardage and they'll bump it up by 1/4 of a yard or 1/8 of a yard if your inches are really close. So they'll round up. So every one of the colors in this quilt is divided that way. So right ahead of time, you know what size strips you need to cut and what blocks they're going to go in. So back looking at the pattern, when you open up to the very first page of the pattern, it'll give you general information. And it'll tell you that you're going to be working on these units: the Mosaic Star, the Leaf Top, Moroccan Star, Fractured Glass, Star Shimmer Border, and then it'll have Quilt Assembly. So it tells you how many pages you need of each of these newsprint papers. And the newsprint papers are numbered for you so that you can go back into your pattern and check and make sure you got everything you needed and as many pages. In this pattern, everything's just got 1 page, except for this NP779 is 4 pages and NP780 is 4 pages. You just got to make sure they're all in the pattern. Then you've got a supply list, a definition of common tools and terms, and you've got general techniques, foundation papers and templates, how to prepare them, templates and template layout sheets, general information, understanding your yardage. You're going to look through past this stuff. It'll give you general chain piecing, piecing instructions and chain piecing examples. I mean, if you're not familiar at all with any of those terms, you can read through all of this and get a little better understanding of it. That's something that can also be gone over in class. But what you want to do when you start preparing your fabrics is to start on page 6 with the Group J Mosaic Star instructions. And you'll see that at that top of that page, there's a little box that has your fabric names in it, how many yards or inches you need of each, and then a spot that you can put a little sample of the fabric that you chose. And it's really smart to take a little swatch and glue it onto that page, because it's going to help limit any confusion that you have. So I've gone through my pattern, and anywhere that there is a little chart like that, I've glued in my swatches. So that's probably the first thing you want to do when you get started with your pattern. And it's easily done if you've colored that last page of your pattern. That gives you the exact color numbers right on that page, right on that graphic, so that you can plug in your colors, your actual fabric swatches, right in every one of those charts without any issue at all. And so that's all the charts. And that's been done ahead of time, so I won't have any confusion about what I'm cutting. So on page 6 in the pattern is the first group of papers and fabric we're going to start preparing. What we're going to be working on is the mosaic star instructions, and that's what a mosaic star looks like. It actually comes in 3 unit pieces, J1, J2, and J3, that we'll be piecing. You're going to have papers in your pattern, newsprint papers, that are listed as, labeled as NP 749. You'll have 1 page of that, and you'll have 1 page of NP 750. NP 749 has all the little unit papers you need, not all of them, some of them, to cut out. And so I've already taken my papers and I've cut them out. I just lay them flat on my table and I use my rotary cutter and I go around each section, and this is what one looks like when it's already cut out. I've left a little bit, like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, around the outside of each unit. So there's my J1 units, my J2 units, and my J3 units. They're different sizes, different shapes, but I keep them clipped together. I have 8 of each. And they're going to go into baggies so that I can sort them with the fabric that they're going to be sewn to. So here's my, so I just take a J1 bag and I put my J1 units into the bag. I've paper clipped them together. Here's my J2 bag. And I'm just going to put the J2 units in the J2 bag. The pattern tells you what to label your bags as at the very beginning of each section. So there's my J3. So they're all in their own bag. So the papers are ready to go. The second page is more of those units on this page, but you'll also see these other things. There's the graphic, assembly graphic that I have right here. That's in the corner of the paper. These newsprint papers are huge, by the way. And then there's these 3 other templates. And you're going to find this one, which is our template number 1. It'll say sheet number 1. And then this longer one is sheet number 2. And then you're going to find your template J1, which is this. And it'll tell you on the actual newsprint what bag to put it in. These 2 go in bag 1. This one goes into bag 2. And then this long one that's on this first page goes into bag 2 as well. And that's listed here as template layout sheet number 3. I've also put the assembly graphic into the 3rd bag as well, because we won't be needing it until we've pieced all 3 of them. So there's my 3 bags. I'm going to set them aside and we'll start putting fabric in them. So if you're following along in the book, on page 6 it tells you to, right underneath your chart, it shows you your color layout, so you know in a picture what the colors are going to be. You also have it in the chart here. And then it tells you your fabric J1A and J1B are going to be used cutting template J11. So in your bag 1, there's the J11 template, and this is what it looks like. And I have my J1A and B fabrics. It tells me to take a 10-inch strip of each and layer them so that the J1B is on the bottom and J1A is on the top. So I've done that, and I have my template. And I'm going to put some repositionable glue on the back of my template because I have to use it 4 times, and I only have 1 of them. And it'll help it from not slipping so much when I cut with it. So I put the repositionable glue on there. I let it dry for just a few seconds. And then I can position my first piece. It'll stick nicely to the fabric. It won't slip around. And then I can cut around that one. So I have to put this down 4 times. And so I'm just going to cut like that. And that. And then I can take off these corners too. Doesn't have to be perfect. What you're actually going to use in the pattern is inside the solid line in the middle of this template. They give you a little extra so that it's not hard to place it when you're starting out. So there's the first two. I just have to do this 3 more times on this page. And your pattern will show you exactly how they should be laid out. So they're right next to each other, like this. And you have plenty of fabric here, so you don't have to worry about how close they are. You can see how much extra you're going to have when you're done. So I'm going to continue to cut these, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I've got them all stacked. It tells me to stack them with J1B on the bottom and J1A on the top. So I'm just going to restack them now that I've cut them. They were placed with the fabric right side up when you were cutting them, so it does say that in your pattern, and I forgot to mention it. If you are not working with batiks, that's very important. So once you've got them restacked, you're just going to paper clip them together and put them back in bag 1. And then we're going to take out the next template to use, which is template sheet, layout sheet number 1. And this tells me that I need to cut a 6 3/4 inch strip, and I know I only need 1 of my fabric J2. So now we're on the top of page 7, and it tells me that I need fabric J2 and I need to cut 1 6 3/4 inch strip, and I've done that already. And then it tells me to use template layout sheet number 1 and place it on here 4 times and cut the shape of the sheet. So I'm just going to free motion that because it's just a simple curve, and they don't have to be exact. And I'm going to do this 4 times. And the rest is just scrap in case you need it for a repair or a mistake. So that's scrap. So I've got the 4 of them. I'm just going to stack them up as neatly as I can. And then I will put a paper clip on each section. So there's 1 paper clip on each section, and now it has very clearly written here cut line 1, cut line 2, cut line 3, and cut line 4. So you're just going to free wing it right on that cut line. And they're already being held together nicely with a paper clip. Cut line 1. Cut line 2 doesn't go all the way in, or 3, so you have to be careful when you're cutting those. I'm just going to start in the middle of the paper here to do my cut line 2, and then my cut line 3 I can start from the edge of the paper and that's that unit. This is just scrap. And then cut line 4. So there's the 4 pieces that I need. I'm going to set those aside. Once they're all cut apart like that, it tells me to put them back into bag 1. So that's all we need to start piecing our bag 1. The Moroccan Star units, Unit J. Bag 1, and then now we're going to look at bag 2, which is our J2 units. And it has this piece, and it tells me that I need my fabric number J3, and I'm going to cut one 16.5-inch piece. So I have my 16.5-inch piece cut. It's not a batik. I'm going to make sure that it's stacked, not stacked, but make sure that it's on my table with the right side up. And I'm going to take my template, and it shows me in the pattern, it wants me to lay it down like this first. And I'm going to be cutting 8 of these. So I'm just going to take this and cut both of these sides. And this, not using the salvage. So there's one. Now I'm going to flip it, I'm going to spin it so I can get a second one. And I'm going to just keep spinning it back and forth until I have 8 of these cut. And that's all I have left for my scrap. And I have all 8 pieces stacked under this paper. I'm going to put a paper clip on each of the 2 units. So, got one here and one on this side. And they get cut apart on cut line 1. So that's all I need to do for those, and I place them back into bag 3. One goes into bag 3 and one goes into bag 2. So it tells me to take the smaller piece and put it into bag 2, and the longer piece and put it into bag 3. Bag 2. And the longer piece goes into bag 3. The last template layout sheet we have to cut can be found in bag J3, and it's the template layout sheet number 3. And this is what it looks like. If your pattern has your mosaic stars with all the same little points, I have all black, but mine are outlined in red and white, so I have an A and a B. Yours might be all outlined in the same color. If they're all the same color, you're going to want 4 2.5-inch strips of that color. I have half of them white and half of them red. My A is my white and my B is my red. So I'm going to stack them with the red on the bottom and the white on the top. And I'm going to use this template on all 4 pieces twice. So there it is once, and here it is twice. And this is leftover scrap I can put aside in case I need it later. And I'm just going to stack them so that all my whites are on top and my reds are on the bottom. And like I said, if you have all the same color, it doesn't really matter. But I want all my A's on the top, all my B's on the bottom. And then I'm going to put this back on here. And it's going to get 3 paper clips because there's 3 sections. And I want to make sure that my paper clip's not going to be in anywhere where I'm going to try to cut through it. So I'm going to go through that end and this end. And then that single one will need one too. I'll just put it on afterwards. So I'm just going to cut in between on the cut line 1 through all 4 layers. So this gets a paper clip. And according to the instructions on page 7, this long one goes into bag number 3. And then I'm going to cut the 2 shorter ones apart on this cut line 2. One of them is labeled J33 and one of them is labeled J2-2. The J22 goes in bag number 2. And the J3-3 goes into bag number 3. And now all 3 of our J units are ready to start piecing. So that's the end of the mosaic star prep.